During this COVID pandemic, we've all heard about programs designed to help companies survive this terrible crisis. Well, there's another program that isn't as well known that I'd like to tell you about in this video. In May, the SEC promulgated a temporary rule to allow companies to raise up to $250,000 in equity capital using Regulation Crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding. In this short video, I'm going to describe what you need to know to take advantage of this rule. Now, if you're a young entrepreneur and you have a high-tech startup and you're planning to become the next unicorn, you probably already know about equity crowdfunding. But if you're a small to medium-sized business owner with no plans to go public or sell out, you might not be aware that equity crowdfunding is available as a tool to you to raise capital. So you might ask, why would an investor be interested in a company like mine? Well, if you have revenues or the prospect of revenue and profitability, you can sell a revenue share or a profits interest through regulation crowdfunding. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're an early stage company and you've got your first major contract with your first customer and you need capital to fulfill the order. You can offer through regulation crowdfunding a piece of that revenue stream in exchange for a capital investment. So what do you need to know about regulation crowdfunding? Well, I've broken down the requirements into 3 for purposes of this video. Number 1, you have to conduct the offering on an SEC-registered FINRA-licensed crowdfunding portal. Number 2, you must prepare an offering statement, disseminate it to investors, and file it with the SEC where it becomes a public document. And number 3, you must prepare financial statements for your company. Let's take each of those in order. Number 1, the Regulation Crowdfunding Portal. How do I find one? Well, I would just Google SEC Regulation Crowdfunding Portal, and you will come across a FINRA website that lists all of the registered SEC registered portals. There are probably 30 or 40 of them. But you really only need to look at a handful that are the most prominent crowdfunding portals. I would look at each of them. Each of them offers great resources for business owners and entrepreneurs that describe the regulation crowdfunding process. So, what do these crowdfunding portals charge? Well, they charge a back-end interest typically, and it's usually 6 to 8% of the total amount that you eventually raise. Sometimes they'll charge an upfront fee, say a marketing fee, to help you market the offering, maybe between $5,000 and $10,000. But in some cases, they'll defer the fee until you first raise your funds. And there are many crowdfunding sites that don't charge any upfront fee, so you can commence an offering at very little upfront cost. All right, second requirement is to prepare an offering statement. The offering statement is a full disclosure document. You're required to disclose all material information about the investment and about the company's prospects. And the consequences for not doing so can be severe. So I certainly recommend you hire a lawyer to at least review your offering statement. But before you hire the lawyer, I recommend you do this. Do your homework. Take a look at other offering statements filed by other issuers conducting crowdfunding offerings. And the way you do that is you go to the sec.gov website where you can search the offering statements by company name by looking for Form C. Form C is the filing on which the offering statement is made. So go to the crowdfunding websites, find companies that are similar to yours conducting crowdfunding offerings, and if you can download the materials from the crowdfunding website, you can do so, but oftentimes you need to be a registered investor to get access to those materials. But you can get those materials on the SEC website. As I say, it's required to be filed there, and the SEC makes them all readily available. Now, you won't know if that Form C has been prepared by a lawyer or reviewed by a lawyer, so I would take one extra step, and that is take a look at IPO prospectuses that are filed by companies that are planning to go public. Those are typically prepared by lawyers. And the way you can find them is if you happen to know a company going public, you can search the same way on the SEC website by company name. and you want to look for Form S1. That is the registration statement that contains IPO prospectuses. You can review the IPO prospectuses as they will contain very detailed disclosures that you can use as a guide to know what you should be disclosing in your offering statement on Form C. In particular, you'll want to take a look at the risk factors in the IPO prospectuses, especially for companies that are in industries similar to yours, because inevitably your company will face those risk factors, and you can use those risk factors as a guide to preparing your offering statement. The third requirement under Regulation Crowdfunding is that you prepare your financial statements. If you've been in business for more than 2 years, you're only required to provide 2 years of financial statements. If you've been in business less, since inception, and the financial statements must be prepared in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. Now, do you need to hire an accountant? I would recommend you have an accountant at least take a look at your financials to make sure that they're prepared in accordance with GAAP. But the temporary rule allows you to eliminate one major requirement, and that is that the requirement to have the CPA conduct a review of your financial statements. Under the temporary rule, if you're only raising $250,000, you're not required to get the accountant's review, and you can submit financial statements based on your self-certification. There are a couple other requirements to take advantage of the rule. It is temporary, so you'll have to commence the offering before August 31st, when the rule ends. And you must have been in business for at least 6 months and have been formed for 6 months in order to use the rule. So you can't just start up, it won't apply to startup companies. There are some other advantages under the rules, such as you can commence an offering before you've even finished preparing your financial statements, but you can't close on the offering until you've delivered the financial statements to investors. During this terrible pandemic, it's more important than ever that companies remain capitalized to maintain their workforce. I hope this video helped. I'm Mark Hiraide.